Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I've got an exciting video for you today. Well, at least it's going to be exciting for me because I am looking forward to the end results of this video. I expect everything to work out good, but we're going to go on that journey together. Today I'm working on my 2015 3.5 liter F-150 EcoBoost, which is going to be this guy right here. I've got multiple videos on my channel about different things I've done to it. Including, cheapy intercooler, how well did that work out, modifying AMS pipes to fit in that truck, as well as other things. So I'm running out of modifications due to the truck because I've pretty much done everything. One thing I've always been on the fence about is doing a blow-off valve. The price tag has always kept me from wanting to actually do it. Turbo Smart is $300 something for their mechanical blow-off valve. Their electric is right around the same price. That just recently came out, $300 something. And I just haven't wanted to spend that kind of money. The main benefit of the blow-off valve is going to be sound. Excuse me. I gotta stop drinking soda before I make these videos. The other benefit is that you don't have to really worry about any type of failure. Aftermarket blow-off valves are stronger than the factory bypass valve, which are hit or miss when you start running higher levels of boost, how reliable they become. So I knew I wanted to do something. I like to fiddle around with different things, constantly work on my cars, and I knew I didn't want to spend $300 on a blow-off valve. I know we're real limited on options. Turbo Smart sells a couple that are plug and play, both over $300. I think Full Race and On3 both sell a 50 millimeter blow-off valve, but it's incorporated into their piping kit as well as their intercooler kit, so you're spending over $1,000. Plus, I think they only make those kits for the 11 through 14s, and like I said, I have a 15. So I really didn't have a ton of options. Because I can weld, that opened up the door for me quite a bit as far as what I could do. I know not everybody can weld, and if you can, you may not have the tools to do so because aluminum welding equipment can be very expensive, which is why I can't weld aluminum at my house. I have to do it at work because that's where the machines are. So I wanted to do this video where really anybody could do it. It didn't have to rely on special skills or expensive tools. So as we go through this video, if you see me doing something that you would do it differently, it's probably because I'm doing it on purpose to keep the cost down, as well as the simplicity as simple as possible. So I want to do this project where every single person could duplicate it. As long as you know how to turn a wrench, you can do what I'm about to do. So with that said, I'm going to show you the blow-off valve I bought, and I went full cheap, like crazy cheap. Compared to the Turbo Smart $300 something price tag, I bought this guy right here. This is a tile knockoff. That's why it doesn't have any nothing etched into it. It's inexpensive. Let's see, it slides up. I can't do it with one hand, but the piston moves freely. And you can tell it's a knockoff, just in case anyone ever is in the market for a real tile blow-off valve. When you look at it from the side, the knockoffs, you can see that O-ring, the orange O-ring that's in there. The knockoffs, you can see it. In the tile, it sits slightly further down where you cannot see it. There's other telltale ways of knowing whether you have a knockoff or not, but that's just one thing to keep in mind. I know this is a knockoff. I paid a grand total of $25 for this. Before anyone starts tuning out thinking I'm not spending $25 on a part that's super crucial to my truck, which it is. It's an important part, but the price is irrelevant. The quality is what matters. And this thing, you can actually see, I can push it open. Piston moves nice and easy, very smooth. This isn't tight, I'll tighten that down. But anyways, it did come with a secondary spring. This one's stiffer in case that one is too soft. You don't want the valve open while the truck's idling. So until I put it in, I won't know which one is the one I want. But essentially when the engine is warmed up and idling, you want that valve closed, but yet you want it basically you want the spring stiff enough to keep it shut while idling, but soft enough that it blows off as soon as you let off the gas when you're in boost. So we'll find out. You can always cut these springs. That's actually what I had to do in my other car, which I'll point out. The hood is on this car and I don't feel like pulling it off, but this is my Mustang. This is a recent build, but the engine and most of everything from my last car made it into this car. Sitting up front is a knockoff of a Turbo Smart blow-off valve. That was about $50 back when knockoff blow-off valves were still semi-expensive, if you want to call $50 expensive. But anyways, that's been on the car, or been on that engine for years. Years and years and years of service, up to 30 pounds of boost, depending on what tune I'm running. Never had any problems with it. So I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to work awesome. I mean, it's solid. It feels heavy in my hand. It's a good piece. I'm not worried about it. $25. All right. Next piece you're going to need, this guy right here. I'm pretty sure if you have an 11 through 14, you will not need a 90-degree piece. A straight coupler will work. This is a 2-inch diameter coupler. This was $8, and it came with T-bolt clamps, which I think I left in my truck. I don't have them out here on the table because I have a bunch of stuff. Oh no, here they are, right here. So these came with it, and this for $8. This was actually about an inch longer, maybe an inch and a quarter, and I cut it down just to make it more compact because I don't need it to be that long. Like I said, if you have an 11 to 14, the opening to for the bypass valve is slightly further over in relation to the actual charge pipe. So like I said, I believe you can run just a straight coupler. You don't have to get the 90. So I was racking my brain, how do I hook up a 50 millimeter blow-off valve? First thing came to mind, I have aftermarket charge pipes. They're aluminum. I could easily just take this, cut a hole in the aluminum charge pipe, weld this in its place, and plug that hole. The problem with that theory, is that, like I said, I wanted to do this so that every single person could do it. Not everyone can weld aluminum. Not everyone has an aluminum charge pipe. You might have the stock charge pipes on your truck. So that would not work for you. So what I decided to do is, how do I incorporate this internal threading that's right in here so that I could attach this to it? And after racking my brain, I realized there's no reason to attach it to the inside, because that's how the stock does it. It goes in, it turns 90 degrees, locks into place. What I came to the conclusion is I can just do this. The outside of that is exactly 2 inches. Then we take this. Keep in mind, this is my stock intercooler. I don't give a crap about it. I have an aftermarket intercooler. It's still in my truck, so that's why you see me abusing the hell out of this one. And basically like that, it's not going to bounce around any more than anything else. Keep in mind, there's still no clamps on it, so it's just sitting there. This is how it's going to go. This will get turned to face up. Just going to have a simple vacuum line. One T-bolt clamp back here. Another T-bolt clamp right here. It does not interfere with the piping. You know, you can angle it however you want, up higher. If you wanted to have it come out with different bends for some reason, if you'd wanted to hang down real low, I don't know why you'd want to do that. You can. But like I said, $25 blow-off valve, an $8 90-degree coupler with clamps included. I don't have it pushed on all the way, but this will actually slide all the way on. There's plenty of meat here for you to put a clamp on, and obviously right here there's plenty of meat as well. So that's the plan. The only downside to this is you do have to pull your intercooler out far enough to get the factory bypass valve out, which we'll get into here in a second. But for those of you with the 15 and up and you have the electronic blow-off valve, you might be thinking, well, how do I make sure I don't get a check engine light? Turbo Smart includes a check engine light eliminator. Yes, they do. You are correct. They do provide that. This right here is exactly what they provide you. Now, they make it look a lot nicer than what I'm showing you here at face value, but all they're doing is taking one of these little resistors. Let's see if I can get it on camera. What's going on with my camera? There we go. It looks like a red, black, blue, and an orange stripe. Basically, when I touch my multimeter to this, this comes up at, 39 ohms of resistance. The label right here tells you what it is, 1/2 watt. and it's supposed to be rated to 36, but when I test it with my multimeter, like I said, it comes up at 39. As long as it's between 35 and 40, you're good to go. That comes straight from TurboSmart's tech support. So I know I'm on the money with this. All I'm going to do is solder some wires to it, because that's all they do. They solder some wires to it and have you crimp it onto the factory connector, which we will get to. Let's see, later on in the video, but basically they just provide you with a couple of these. So that's what I'm going to use as well. If you're worried about crimping onto the factory wiring, you can also take off the electronic portion of the factory bypass valve, which just sits right here in the corner, and leave that plugged in. The computer will still see that the factory bypass valve is there, no check engine lights. One way or another, this is going to be a little bit cleaner. But I'm gonna go with the cleaner route. The other one's the easier route. If you're not good at wiring, you can do the second route, which I'll show you a little bit in detail when we get there. But like I said, this is how it's gonna sit on the aftermarket intercooler. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull my intercooler out, get the factory bypass valve out of the way, and then we'll get this guy attached to the aftermarket. And then after that, it's just a matter of hooking up a vacuum line, which at this moment in time, I don't have any. I'm gonna have to go pick some up, but let's go ahead and get underneath the truck and start doing some work. Okay, so here we are under the truck. If yours is completely stock, it's gonna look slightly different from mine because I have an aftermarket intercooler, as well as cold pipes from MBRP, and they're hot pipes. So stock ones are going to be plastic and black. I've also done the VTA mod. So the bypass valve is just venting to atmosphere. This would be one other thing you have to disconnect if you were going to try to do this job. And then here's the electrical connection, which I just disconnected before I pulled out my camera. So really the hardest part about this entire job is to get this out. I have to rotate it up, basically vertical, which means the intercooler's got to come out, because there's no way to rotate this to get it out of place while the intercooler's still in. So that means moving this bolt and this bolt, and then bringing the intercooler down, which I'm not super excited about because it was no fun putting in this aftermarket intercooler, and now I get to do it all over again. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started on that. Okay, little status update here. I was actually able to drop the intercooler enough, you know, so I didn't have to remove it completely. So all I did was loosen up all of these clamps, which are still loose, have to be retightened. And this is still loose. I'll tighten that back up when I have everything done. But here's what it looks like with the 90-degree fitting. It'll actually go up a little bit higher. I can't quite push it up in place with one hand, but it's going to sit up a little bit higher, and I plan to angle that down just a little bit anyways. But that's how it's going to look with the 90 on it. For the most part, it went pretty smooth. The intercooler did fall because I forgot that it was just barely hanging in place, and it smashed me in the face. So that wasn't very fun. But other than that, things went pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and try to put a clamp on that before I completely lock everything into place. And then once I get that clamp on, I'll put the blow-off valve, clamp that on, and then I'll grab the camera again. Okay, I've got everything bolted back in place. As you can see, the new blow-off valve is right here. All the charge piping is hooked back up. I apologize for the shadow. I am working with the work light now. The sun has long since gone down. Yes, dear. One sec. Yeah, that's what took so long, is I had to take care of the kids for a little bit there. They both wanted to eat. So anyways, had to take a break, and that's why it's now dark. So everything's hooked back up. These pipes are hooked back up. Intercooler is tight. The only thing, one second, the only thing not hooked up is the electrical, which I will show you a quick shortcut to, one sec, baby, to how to do that if you're a little apprehensive. Let me get out of here. All right, so if you're not into wiring and you're a little worried about installing the resistors like I showed you, which is, I'm not going to put that in the video simply because if you want to know how to do it, just go look at, what is that called? TurboSmart's install video. They show how they hook up the electronics. And really all it is that it's that resistor I showed earlier in the video, attached with a little bit of wire, and then those splicer connector things that I also showed you in the beginning of the video. You're essentially just completing the circuit with a resistor in its place. The computer thinks something is hooked up. Sissy, go back in the house. Man, everyone wants a hold of me. Kids, dogs, everything while I'm out here working. But anyways, this is the only part of the bypass valve that the computer looks for. This is all it cares about. So technically, you can connect this to the factory wiring and leave this tucked up somewhere under the hood. It's got holes in it now that you've removed the screws. Just use a zip tie to hold it in place. The computer doesn't know that there's no pressure on this, so it's just going to assume it's hooked up and working the way the factory designed it. Looking at this, if you're ever interested in making a super cheap blow-off valve and you want it to be louder than stock, this is basically just a muffler. This half, if you were to cut this right through here and keep this part still attached to the truck and this part throw in the garbage, you can still retain actually the electronic blow-off valve like the factory intended without this expansion chamber muffler type of thing. So it would actually be louder than the VTA mod while still retaining your factory electronics. Just something to think about if you have a saw that can cut through here. It's just plastic. Any type of saw will get through it. Just something to think about, throwing it out there, but that's not what this video is about. So just in order to get the truck back on the road as quickly as possible, I'm actually going to just stick this back up under the attach it with zip ties, like I said, to the intercooler piping and plug it back into the computer. Just so the computer thinks that this crap is still hooked up. I'll go back and clean it up by replacing it with resistors later on down the road. But like I said, for those of you who are trying to do it as cheap as possible and don't like doing any type of wiring, this is the way to go. Unbolt it, plug it back in, computer has no idea what's going on. Well, unfortunately I didn't get lucky. You can clearly hear the engine running, and the vacuum on this truck is more than enough to pull that soft spring wide open. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and change out the spring for the stiffer one, because I don't think any amount of spring or shims are gonna do the job. I'm gonna have to switch to the stiffer spring. So one extra step, it is what it is. Okay, so as far as the actual connections up here are concerned, I've used this line. This is the factory line right here. This is not the factory clamp. The factory clamp looks like this, but it fell off a long time ago, many years ago. It was almost the first issue I ever had with this truck was that this line popped off because the clamp was junk. So ignore the fact that I have a different clamp. But other than that, this factory hose travels back this way and goes to this T-fitting right here. My camera would focus. This is a factory installed T-fitting. I didn't put that there. There was a cap, a vacuum cap on the third port right here, which I took off and used a long time ago to install my water methanol injection kit. So that's what this line goes to. You can see it travels back and goes back to the controller where I have it hidden further back. So what I did is, since I already knew that this line saw vacuum and boost, which is what you need to hook up the blow-off valve, I tapped into the existing line that I'm already using with this T-fitting, or I guess it's a Y-fitting if you want to call it that, and ran a vacuum line here down to the blow-off valve, and that's pretty much it. It was very simple to hook up, nothing really exciting. If you want to spend the money, different companies make a spacer so that you can have vacuum ports right behind the throttle body, but those things are like $100-something bucks, and that's really all you get out of those spacers is a place to hook up your vacuum line. I know I think TurboSmart and a couple other companies sell a spacer that sits underneath your map sensor so that you can have vacuum reference as well. You can do that. That's going to cost a little more. Grand total on this project, I spent, I think, $4 for a box of those Y fittings, T fittings, whatever you want to call it. I spent, well, I can't remember the actual breakdown. Basically, I know that box is $4, and with that Y fitting and the vacuum line, I spent just over $8 and change after taxes at the auto parts store, so we'll call it $9 for that. I spent just under $9 with tax for the that silicone coupler with the clamps, and then I spent I want to say just under $28 with tax for the blow-off valve. So you can do the math, add that up. Unfortunately, the spring that came with or in the blow-off valve straight from the factory was really, really soft, and as soon as you start the truck, blow-off valve goes wide open. I can't have that. It's got to be shut when you're idling. So I went and got the heavier weight spring, which was way too heavy. It was incredibly stiff. The valve did not want to open, so I had to modify it because this was too soft, the other one was too stiff. So what I did is, you can see the pieces I had cut. So this is really the only hard part about, you have to have a little bit of a special tool. You have to have some way to cut metal. Unfortunately, I didn't want it to end up that way, but that's what happened. So I'll give you the breakdown of how I did it. This essentially, right here is the top ring. Focus, come on camera, let's go. Anyways, this is the very, very top that you see up here. I made my first cut right here, which really didn't shorten the spring at all. So I made one cut there, and then the first attempt was to remove just a 90. So I rotated 90 degrees, and I would have cut it right here, assuming this was the big spring. And then after that, I cut one full loop, so it would be down here. So essentially, if you're going to try to duplicate it, you're going to take the big heavy spring, you're going to cut off the top seat, then cut it 90 degrees, and then one more down, one full loop down. And that's what all these little pieces are. That's how I came to the correct spring pressure that works. It's shut at idle, but the slightest little bit of a blurp of the gas and then release, the blow-off valve opens right back up. So only thing left now is to put the engine cover back on, which is right there. And then after that, we can go for a test drive and see how it sounds out on the road. Okay, just got back from the first test drive with the new 50mm blow-off valve installed, and it worked very well. It just didn't work quite as well as I wanted it to. Clearly the spring is still too stiff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull it back out, and I'm going to take another half of a coil out of it, put it back in, and go for a test drive. At this point, we're getting real close to having it perfect, but it's not quite there yet. Okay, I've cut the extra half coil out. I'm out on the road, in the truck, should be obvious. When I started it for the first time, I was laying under the truck, I had the remote start. When I started it, I watched the piston in the blow-off valve attempt to move. You could see a fraction of an inch movement, but it didn't actually open, which means that's about as soft as I can get it without having it open while I'm idling. So I'm pretty sure that's gonna be dead on perfect. I've actually driven from my house out to this location where I'm out in the middle of the desert, which is where myself and countless other people go to do various shenanigans. So I'm gonna go back down the road, back towards the city. I'm gonna do a couple little rev it up, blow it off, etc., etc. So you can get an idea of what it sounds like, and then from there it's up to you whether you want to try to do this or not. I do plan later on down the road to do some data logs to see if in fact my factory bypass valve was failing to hold boost pressure. So we'll see if I see any more boost pressure or any extra airflow or whatever the case may be. But I guess I'm gonna start moving because it looks like someone else has come down this road. There they go to do some kind of fun automotive related stuff. So let me flip the camera around and I'll get you a couple blow-off sounds. Here we go. much wind noise, I'll roll the window up. Probably get one more in here, see what it sounds like. So, pretty good. Sounds clean. If you like a little bit louder blow-off valve, this is definitely an option. Under $50 invested. Like I said, I'll do some data logging to see if it makes a difference as far as carrying boost higher in the RPMs or whatever the case may be. I'm not expecting to see anything because ever since I added the AMS pipes, I've been holding 18 PSI all the way to redline, which I'm pretty sure that's what my tune calls for. So I don't expect to see anything different, but it doesn't hurt to take a look. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm usually pretty good at responding to the questions on my YouTube videos. So anyways, have fun, and I'll see you for the next video.